I think we're live. Okay, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with a Vulnerable Angel and friends. I am your host, the Vulnerable Angel, Dominica May. And tonight, our episode is Parenting Perspectives, as chosen by Mike. Well, Mike, you chose parenting. I'm going to expand it a little bit. And our guests tonight, we have my usual guest, Mike, and Mike's mother, Anne. Thank you so much for joining us.
I got my mom on here.
Yes, you did.
And even more than that, I would just love to say this is my mom's very first time ever live streaming anything. So, Mom, you're live on YouTube right now.
That's amazing.
Did, yes. I don't know what else to say.
Surprise!
Here we go.
So because Mike is spending time with Anne right now, that is the reason that we went with the parenting topic, so we can discuss some parenting questions. And yeah, I'm having a little bit of problem with my internet. I hope it's working for you. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you and see you just fine.
Great. Perfectly.
I think it's
just
all
curious
on your
because I
end.
occasionally get this little, occasionally I get the notifications, oops, you're having trouble with your connection. Like, oh, really? Okay. All right.
That's fair.
Let's, you guys ready to go? We start with the first question that we have. Oh,
Let's
before we
do it.
get
Let's
started,
jump in.
I also want to, for our potential viewers, who are not here yet, Sharad may joining us throughout the show, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. He had some other things going on, so he might be popping in and out. All right, here's our first question. And this is one that I wrote myself because I wasn't entirely happy with all of the questions that ChatGPT gave me. The first question that ChatGPT gave me was, the first question they gave me was one that we had previously discussed, I think, on one of the very early live streams that we had from the random cards. So this was my question that I came up with that I thought would be a great opening question for us. So how would you describe your parents' parenting style? And is it something you have or would choose to emulate when raising your own children, either now or in the future, or in the past, I suppose, as well, since Mike is a fully grown adult now.
Well, this is an awkward one now that I have Mom on the live stream and she's in the same room and I keep making eye contact with her off to this side. But how would I describe my parents' parenting style? Terrible. No. No, just kidding. Mom and my dad, both of my parents were just the best. Um is it something you have or would choose to emulate when raising your own children? Not hardly. No, of course, obviously. So, when I think of my parents' parenting style, one of the first thing that comes to mind, for me at least, is sacrifice. And I know that I've said this in the past, but both of my parents sacrificed so much in order to give my brother and I the things that we have, the opportunities that we had. Um, I'm not going to say Mom was a perfect parent. Heyo. Uh, yeah, nobody is. Nobody is. There's this idea as to what being a perfect parent is. And you might be able to look like a perfect parent on Instagram. You might be able to, play the part of the perfect parent at the PTA meeting, right? But behind closed doors, no one's perfect. No one always makes the right choice or always does what's right for their kids. Um, but like I said before, I always go back to sacrifice and what like what they sacrificed for me, to give me the opportunities that I had. Because there's that whole idea that you always want your kids to have what you never got. Um, I don't know how true that is of your experience, Mom, but I always felt that that was true of you guys for us. So, is that something that I want to emulate? Uh, if I ever get to raise my own kids? Yes, 100%. Um, uh, we're selfish people. We all want to live our own selfish lives, but when, pardon me, I'm still getting over a little cough thing. Um, when kids come into your life, they take precedent. So, of course, that means having to sacrifice the quote unquote fun things that I've been able to make
Mm,
staples in my rituals, my day-to-day rituals. So yeah, 100%. My parents are awesome, even the dead ones,
I love that.
because my dad's
I don't know
dead.
how to react to that. I know, I understand. It's like I don't know how to react to that. Yeah, I've definitely done the sacrifice thing for my own kids for sure. I can't remember if this is something I've talked about on the live stream in the past, but there have definitely been things that I would have done differently had I not been raising children, for sure. But my kids are older now, so I'm they're 18 and 14. And yeah, so I don't know if I would put sacrifice as one of the things that I noticed about my own parents' parenting style. Um my I don't know, how would I describe? I wrote this question. I'm like, wow, how would I answer it? I didn't prepare. I should have.
Oh, how about you,
Um,
Mom? Like, if
yeah,
you need a moment to think, Dominica, to come up with an answer, is there
yeah,
anything on your
yeah.
brain, Mom, that you've been kind of percolating over there about good old Eileen and Al, Al Marine?
Well, as you can see, I am of a different generation than the hosts and hostess that here.
Mom, you're not that old. You're only what, 102, 103?
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
You're
jeez.
not that old. You're only what, like 102 years old, 103
Yeah, I'm
years
only
old?
100 years old.
Yeah.
Look,
Okay, so
that's younger than me because apparently I've been around since the dinosaur age. So according to my children.
I grew up right at the end, right in the middle and the end of World War II. So I lived during in a time when um, everyone's values and attitudes about things were very very different than they are now. So my parents were my parents were strict, and my father traveled for a living, and my mother was home raising us, and there was no monkey business. You had chores to do, and you did them. Um, Mother was she was very loving. She was very kind, but she did have a standard that you lived up to. Yeah, that you had to live up to, and so that's that's the kind of environment that I grew up in.
So what about the second part of the question, Mom, of obviously you've already done an amazing job at raising me. Uh, but how have you would you have chosen uh to emulate those same qualities from grandma and grandpa? Or were they things that happened naturally, or did you change any of that aspect?
I think I changed some because um, the environment around me also changed. But I was, I felt that I was a very, your dad and I were very strict parents. But in comparison to what my mother was, I wasn't a strict mother that much. So I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of an example that you might find humorous. When I was about 12 years old, we got every year we got a pair of shoes for school, and I was thrilled with my shoes. They were white canvas shoes, and I thought they were wonderful. And I wanted to wear them everywhere, and so we got them like a day or two before school started, and so I wanted to wear them to church, and so I did. I put those wonderful shoes on, and I told my mother I would go to church and meet her over there. My father was already there. So I thought that I was pretty safe. So I left the house and started walking over because the church wasn't that far. And pretty soon I saw this car coming down the street that was my dad. And he noticed my shoes immediately. And he pulled over, told me to get in the car, took me back home, told me to go in and change my shoes. His daughter did not wear those kinds of shoes to school. I mean, to church. They were only for school. I was crushed, but I had to take my shoes off and I had to put my church shoes on and go back to church. And that was just the standard. Now, I never imposed those kinds of things upon you, but that's the kind of um, environment, the kind of standards my mother and dad had, and I had to live up to them.
Wow. Yeah, that's
I
I can't imagine.
I have nothing more to say about that.
It kind of makes me
It-
wonder, like, Dominica, if your dad is watching, Frank, what
He will
in
later.
the early days of taking Dominica to uh, uh, catechism, I want to know if there were like any uh, issues with Dominica's shoes, or trying to sneak anything into church that ought not be
the
in that
the
regard.
only the the only time I remember being you know, having particular pair of shoes that I had to wear to church was when I had my first communion, and I'd say I had to wear like a particular outfit which came with particular shoes. That's the only time that I had to wear specific shoes for church.
And you didn't put your Converse Chuck Taylors on?
I mean, I didn't have any of those kinds of shoes when I was growing up anyway. Still don't now.
Totally
so.
fair. Totally fair.
But yeah.
But what about you, Dominica? What about your parenting style?
Well, let me talk about my parents first. So I feel like both of my parents had a different style. My dad, who, and I don't know if Mike mentioned, my dad watches these live streams. So even though he's not currently watching right now, he will be watching afterwards. So, Mike, this might be your first time that you're having to worry about how your mom reacts, but my dad always reacts to everything.
Oh no, it's okay. I know how my mom reacts.
No, it's fine. Anyway, my dad, I feel like, was more laid back. So I have minimal to no memory of what my parents were like when they were together. I was 9 when they separated. So my idea of their parenting style is from post-separation. And so my dad was like sometimes after school dad and Friday night sleepover dad. So he was more the fun, laid back parent, and we'd always go out for fast food or some kind of takeout for dinner on Friday night, with soda usually and all of this kind of thing. It was like, woohoo, Happy Meals, I get to collect the figurines. Like that was my dad's style stuff. And my mom, I felt, was more on the higher expectations. I wouldn't say strict per se, but definitely higher expectations of, you got to do well in school. You got to make sure that you're not, falling in with a bad crowd. Don't do drugs. Basically be a goody two shoes kind of person, right? So yeah, that's how I would say describe both of my parents' parenting style. And I don't think I have really emulated that so much. I mean, I've maybe emulated my dad more so than my mum in terms of being a little bit more laid back, but not in the buying fast food every weekend and soda and that sort of thing. That's actually something that I've been very, very rarely fast food, because I've since learned how bad it is for you. And
Well, it also depends on the fast food too.
yeah, I suppose. But I wouldn't be able to tell you when was the last time I had McDonald's, for example, or KFC, or like any of the fast food chains, right?
Right. Right.
And so if my family is going to eat out, it's going to be one of the maybe more upmarket American restaurant chains like Applebee's, but probably more likely an independent restaurant, local restaurant, if we are going to eat out. So it may cost more, but at least the food seems better. And soda is like maybe twice a year. It's like that's how rare it is.
See, here, just so you know how hooked on soda I am, I'm at my mom's place well, my brother lives upstairs, my brother and his whole family. It's not like he's a loser. Did I just call my brother a loser on YouTube?
I think.
He's not going to watch it. It's fine. Anyway, I have a Soda Stream here in Virginia, right here. I can't live without my soda. So I have a Soda Stream at home in New York. I have a Soda Stream here in Virginia. So yeah, I'm well stocked
Wow.
up on the
Wow.
carbonation.
That is something that my dad had as well. I remember he had a Soda Stream growing up. And so that's maybe the one thing I remember from my house when my whole family was living in the same house, and then he took it with him when he moved out. So I guess that tells you which of my parents was the soda parent.
They're amazing. I love them so much.
I did not like the Soda Stream. It's like even worse than like
you're not a soda person.
Soda that you buy from a store. It's like no, but like even before when I grew up on it, I still didn't like the Soda Stream because I didn't like the way that they gassed it up or whatever. It had a weird twinge of a flavor to me.
That's fair.
But yeah, that's how it was. I feel like there was something else I was going to say about it, but we actually have one of our viewers is joined us. We have Lego Timmy is in the house.
Lego Timmy
gives us a wave. Hi, Timmy. And
how's it going?
He says he hasn't had McDonald's in like 3 years, but he does love the soda.
I will say McDonald's soda is pretty good.
Can I say that I didn't have to be directed by my parents because soda wasn't readily available as a child. There were a few places that you could get it, but it wasn't plentiful in the grocery stores. We didn't even have it in our home for years. So that wasn't an issue for me.
What were your vices that your parents had to monitor?
What were my vices? Well, we finally got a television when I was about 10, and I thought TV was just wonderful. That was a vice. And I wanted to, it was, yes, but you had to do chores before you could watch television. So that's kind of how that was, which was very different than when you and your brother grew up, because you were given an assignment, and when you took care of that assignment was up to you. I didn't go around and monitor everything. So
I do remember, though, in that regard, kind of in conjunction with television, Saturday mornings. I mean, Saturday morning cartoons, the best time to be a kid. Uh, but I remember you limited how much Saturday morning cartoons we got to watch because Saturday mornings was when we did chores. Got to clean the
Yes.
bathrooms, got to vacuum the floors, got to take out the trash, got to do this, got to do that, clean up your bedroom, straighten up the toys, whatever. And I wanted to sit down and watch Pee-wee's Playhouse or Rude Dog or whatever name, you know, cartoon here, Thundercats, whatever. I wanted to watch all that stuff. I know Thundercats were the best. Um, but yeah, we didn't always have that opportunity.
Mhm.
I didn't we didn't have television, as I said, but we did have radio. And so we had those same kinds of distractions. We had Sky King and we had the Lone Ranger and we had Let's Pretend and we had the Princess something. I don't remember her name, but
Oh, I play Let's Pretend all the time.
well, those were radio shows and they lasted for 15 minutes apiece. But we still had to do our chores before we could go and listen.
I'm trying to think what
Chores.
my chore situation was like when I was growing up. I don't think there was that much. I remember having to deal with loading and unloading the dishwasher, which is probably one of the reasons that I'm so particular about how the dishwasher is loaded now. But other chores that I did at home more, I got like got if I did it extra stuff that I didn't usually have to do, that I would get paid extra pocket money, which I loved. And that is, again, so that was one of my mum's things. But again, that's not something that I've emulated with my kids. Like my kids are just expected to do, whatever chores that they have to do, which isn't a lot, to be honest. But I don't pay them pocket money. So, yeah. I think, I mean, there's one upside is that it teaches you responsibility and, earning, money for doing stuff. But the downside to it, I think, is that it makes you also not as responsible for taking care of your house unless there is monetary incentive. So,
I mean, I've always thought about that in terms of because I've definitely seen other families do that same thing, have that same system. But if I ever have kids sometime down the road, how am I going to navigate those waters? Like, is it like a commission based system where like each or is it like a retainer? Uh, yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
you can switch it up as time goes on as well, just experiment, because what works for, some families don't necessarily work for other families.
It's true.
We did have a pocket money situation earlier on, but after I guess during the pandemic is when I stopped, after my ex-husband moved out of the house, because I was like, I'm going to do things differently now, and I'm unemployed, so I can't really afford to keep paying my kids pocket money, and make sure that they're keeping up with things. So we'll see what happens. And then the chores that you get them to do, you kind of have to like see what suits them as well. Like my daughter, one of her autistic sensory processing aversions is touching water, so she doesn't like rinsing off dishes before it goes in the dishwasher and things like that. So what had originally been, everyone has to do their own like rinsing of dishes and put them in the dishwasher, and then we each had a different part of the dishwasher that we had to unpack. So like my daughter had to do the top, I did the bottom, and then my son did the cutlery. I traded with my daughter so that I rinsed her dishes and put them in the dishwasher, and she now unloads both the top and bottom rack of the dishwasher, and my son has kept the same responsibility that he had before. But just as an example, like sometimes
Interesting.
you have to change things up depending on
Interesting.
the needs of the child.
I've shared this story on the stream before, but I haven't discussed this with my mother since it happened in the mid 90s, or probably early to mid 90s. Mom, do you happen to remember a time that you told me to go to the kitchen and do the dishes? And I absolutely, like, I put my heels down, I put my feet in the sand, I kicking and screaming. I did not want to. Now, in the early to mid 90s, I was, I don't know, 11 years old, 10 years old, somewhere in through there, like old enough that like I shouldn't be putting up that much of a fight, but also like young enough that like I don't want to do this. This seems like actual like heavy duty labor for a child to do. Um, so I go into into the kitchen begrudgingly, and I start washing the dishes. And there was this moment where a very soapy plate slipped out of my hands, and I had the opportunity to catch it, but I decided not to, and it smashed all through the sink. And this came, shortly after mom was like yelling at me, like, go to the kitchen, do your dishes, whatever, right? Um, this mom right there. And um and so I smacked the plate broke, and I went into this. I'm such a doofus. I'm such a doofus. And of course, like everyone heard the plate break,
Can
and
I
mom and dad,
interrupt very briefly? So
please.
you were doing weaponized incompetence from age 10, age 9 or 10.
Yes. Yes. I didn't know there was a term for it, but yes. Weaponized incompetence. So
Mhm.
I'm such a doofus, such a doofus. And of course, mom and dad come in, and I remember mom going, like, kind of hugging me and like petting my head. You're not a doofus. You're not a doofus. You can go to your room, you can watch TV. And I was like, ha, I got out of it. And then that's how I got mom and dad to do the dishes for me, when it was my time to do the dishes. Do you remember that at all, Mom? Do you have any recollection of that?
I do not, but I do know that you boys pulled so many stunts that most of them I just had to forget because it was too much to categorize in my brain.
Fair.
What I
That makes
remember
sense.
though is that we did try to fit fit the job to the age and your ability. So
Sure.
you were able to do those dishes. You just didn't want to. But I know that many times you did try to get out of the dishes. That I do know. So
Hated
we
it.
had to find other things for you to do because it wasn't fair for you just to get rewarded for having a disaster.
Hey,
Very
but if that's
agree.
what gets me out of it,
You might remember that in the future with
Fine.
your children.
we'll see. We'll see. Next question.
Oh, I was just gonna add another thing that I've actually liked with not doing the pocket money thing for chores is my son is now at the point where he's actually taken on personal responsibility to wash his own sheets and and taking out his own trash all on his own because he wants to do it. I'm like, that is great. That I don't know how he came up with this decision that he was going to do this all on his own, but I'm glad I did not have to like force him to do it or anything. It was, and I feel like that
Wow.
has been the thing that has made me proud in a way that like I didn't have to do anything, and he just decided that he wanted to do this all on his
All
own.
on his own. That's great.
All on his
What a,
own. It was
what a
great.
good thing.
Yeah, I have dusting gloves, like gloves that you can put on to dust surfaces, and he had like some dust in his room that he wanted to clear up, and he's like, hey, is there something that I can use to do some dusting? I'm like, yeah, here, borrow one of my gloves. So like he notices things that he wants to clean up, and he cleans it now. I was like, that's amazing. I
That
am
is.
so
It's
glad.
wonderful.
So glad that I have that. I'm going to pull up another comment from Timmy before we move on to the next question.
Ooh, yes,
He
please.
just said, this is from a while back. He just said, oh boy, I remember watching cartoons Saturday mornings. I miss those days.
Thank
Now
you.
we can just stream cartoons whenever we want. Mike is currently watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoons.
I
think,
finished
right?
it. I finished it
You finished
yesterday.
it.
Last night, I finished season 7 of the 2003 iteration of Ninja Turtles. There's still one little bit that I've left to finish, even though I officially finished the television show. They did a film to follow up as kind of like an end cap to that particular series. So I still have to watch that movie. But yeah, I finished it. I'll be putting my review online soon.
Nice. Yeah. My cartoons that I'm watching right now is just, it's all anime. That's all I'm watching. All right, here's our next question. How has your relationship with your parents shaped the way you give or receive love?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
We
Can you
are
read it
into
one more
our
time?
ChatGPT questions now. So yes, how has your relationship with your parents shaped the way you give or receive love?
Mom, do you want to start off with
Yes, I
this?
have a response to that. When I was first married and having our first child, my mother gave me some advice that I have not forever forgotten. What she said to me was, love your children and keep them close. And I've always felt that was really great advice, because if your children feel loved and you keep them close to you, not proximity close, but they feel that they can come to you with anything, then you won a big battle. So
I
love
love
your
that.
children and keep them close.
I will say you did a very good job at that.
Thank you.
Can't speak to Dad because I haven't seen him in the past 7 years, but
Jeez.
you've done exceptional.
Well, if he shows up, let us know.
Yeah, I will.
That's right. That's
Ditto.
right. I feel like I got that same lesson from my parents, but not through words. But that has definitely been how I've tried to give love with my own children, to make sure that they feel accepted no matter what, so that they feel safe and comfortable to come to me to discuss anything that they want. My daughter is a little bit more standoffish with that sort of thing, but my son absolutely will talk to me about all kinds of things that most kids, I think, would feel uncomfortable talking to their parents about. So I'm like, at least I did all right there. But from the way my parents shaped me into that was more because I didn't feel safe going to my parents to talk about things that were uncomfortable, and I didn't want to have that for my own kids, for sure. But then in terms of how it's shaped me with giving and receiving love with other people around me, it's I think that sacrifice piece that you were talking about earlier on, Mike, I do feel like it's one of those things that I when I do show my love to people, I sacrifice parts of myself. I think that came from my relationship with my parents, of having to sacrifice parts of who I am in order to feel loved by them. Some of my like attachment wounds that we've kind of talked about, the psychology of attachment theory in the past. And yes, I have like definitely my attachment issues have come from the different dynamics that I had with my parents, for sure.
I think for me, this might not be exactly in the spirit of the question, but um, one of the ways that I give or receive love has always been like through physicality, physical touch, holding hands, like all that PDA type stuff. Um, and that's always been very meaningful to me. Uh, and I feel weird saying this because I'm saying it with my mom in the room.
Shall I close my eyes?
Yeah, close your eyes.
Because that makes a difference to hearing.
I don't ever remember my parents being very lovey-dovey, hand-holding, PDA in public. Um, uh, or very much at home. I don't know. Maybe you guys were, and I'm just remembering it differently, but I don't remember you guys being very lovey-dovey with each other. Um, uh, if you were, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's something that I always kind of wanted more of at home. Like you were with me, um, but I don't remember you guys being that way with each other. And so, like, not only
We grew up in an environment, we grew up in an era where that was not very common. That's where, that's the era I grew up in. It wasn't common for
why?
people.
Yeah, I
It
would
just
say that's
wasn't.
probably similar with my parents. Well, in my mind, if you don't mind me making a bunch of assumptions here, but I imagine it's because just like the tabooness of being affectionate in front of your children or in front of anyone, where loving affection with your spouse is at least back then, seemed to be more of a private matter for in your bedroom, not to do in front of other people,
Right,
regardless of your relationship with them.
right. And because of the way things have changed in the world today and people being more comfortable and more open, it's more common to see that. But it was not common for me when I grew up.
Mm. Well,
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't
So I
think that
guess that would be my
oh,
answer.
okay. I don't
No, no,
think
no.
that
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
I don't think I was ever really particularly physically affectionate with my ex-husband in front of my children either. I feel like that was probably something that I established or learned from my parents, of that's a private thing. You shouldn't be doing things in front of your kids. But I recognize that, I think, especially hearing this from you, Mike, about your perspective on this, I think that it probably has given my kids the impression that relationships are not really important, and what do you get out of them, and things like that, when my kids have not really seen what a healthy relationship looks like, with all of that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that is one of my regrets, I think. And I don't know if I would have changed things with my ex-husband. I don't know. We weren't right for each other anyway. So, but yeah.
Mm.
Okay, next question.
Next question.
If you're not a parent yet, what scares you most and what excites you about the idea? So I guess this question is just for you, Mike, since Sharon is not with us.
I feel attacked.
Please tell us.
If you're not a parent yet, what scares you most and what excites you about the idea? I kind of touched on this earlier. What scares me most is I'm a selfish person. I'm 42 years old. Um, I have my life the way that I want it, carefully curated over the past, when did I move out? 19? Think I was 19 when I left home. So yeah, over the past 23 years, I have kind of built the life that I've wanted to have, and I've fallen into my routines and uh, just I don't know the things that I look forward to every year. Um, and yeah, taking care of another life form um, beyond cats seems like a daunting task. It means, kind of going back to that one of the most admirable things from my own parents, which is sacrifice. Um, Having a child means sacrifice. It means I'm gonna have to give up a lot of those things to give this child the life that they want to have and the life that they need. Yeah, really, it's the life that they need in order to
Mhm.
have the life that they want. Um, so there's that. But what excites me about the idea of having kids? Uh, the future, possibilities. The cool thing about children is that they are completely unpredictable. And for anyone who knows me, that's how I live my life is, by the seat of my pants from day to day, where the unexpected, I just say, I like my routines. I like my life the way that it is. But I very much do try to embrace that spontaneity, the improvisation of life, and see where it goes, see where it takes you. I have the things that I love, uh, things that I love to do, but they're going to have the things that they love to do, which can be very exciting. It can open up my world to try something new, do something different that either A, I didn't care about, or B, that I didn't even know existed. And now here we are going on this journey. And maybe I'll love it and maybe I'll hate it, but that's part of growing is being open to those experiences and embracing the goodness of life. Period. End of thought. Ron
Nice.
Swanson.
And I think we can answer this. And I think we can address this question kind of if we're answering how we felt before we were parents, what scared us and what excited us. And maybe as we were parents also, like while we were parenting, what scared us and what excited us. For me, I think what scared me the most was just screwing up my kids and just doing a really bad job of things. Like that was terrifying to me. I'm like, give this kind of responsibility to me? What? And I was a very young parent. Like I was what 23 when my first child was born. So yeah, I'm not really an adult yet. I mean, you expect me to be an adult to this child?
It's almost like you're Mormon or something.
Right, maybe. No, that part of that was being raised Catholic probably, and my mom passing away when I was 21, and her like dying wish of not a dying wish, but like the one thing that she told me that she would regret by dying as young as she did was not getting to meet her grandkids. So I think that was one of the reasons that I had children so soon after that. Anyway, so yeah, that was the thing I was most scared of, was screwing up my kids and doing a terrible job. What has excited me the most? I don't know what I was most excited about before I became a parent, but what has excited me the most throughout my parenting years has been just getting to see my kids grow up into their own people and seeing their interests and everything develop all on their own. Sometimes they might be influenced by me, other times they find stuff and discover stuff on their own, and they'll introduce things to me. So like you were saying, Mike, that's great. But I have definitely enjoyed introducing things that I love to my kids, and discovering new things together with them so that we can kind of have those interests together. That's definitely been a big part for me. How about you, Anne?
I think as you were talking, I was kind of reminiscing back a little bit. I'd like to start with what excites me the most about having children, and that was watching their accomplishments and uh, what they learned to love. What was not anything that in in I had much contact with in either case of my sons. Um, Michael loved the theater and arts and all those things. Marty loved the military, and so those were things that I was not familiar with, but had to learn to grow and understand them. Um, and I think the same thing I could project toward my grandchildren, watching what my grandchildren are interested in now and their development. They're each individuals, and they don't have the same ideas at all. But it's very fascinating um, to watch their minds grow, and how quickly they learn new ideas and adapt them into their own lives. I really love watching that, and I love that with my sons. The thing that was hard for me, and I this was my problem that I brought with me, and that is my own fears and anxieties, and I projected some of that onto my children. Some of
Hang
it, I
on,
think,
what?
Mike, you've definitely talked about this in the stream before.
I've I've spent a lot of time trying to learn to control my anxieties, and so that I don't do the same things to my grandchildren.
That's great. No, there's always room for learning and growing from things like that. I love that. Yeah. I'm thinking like my daughter has definitely introduced me to more things than my son, I think, that I wasn't already familiar with. You're bringing that stuff up and reminded me of like last night, my daughter was like, happy, like interested in spending time with me. What? She's 18. And I'm like, I'm going to make the most of this. So I'm like, what do you want to do? And she's like, let's do a video game together. And it's been a while since we'd been playing a video game, like 3 of us together as a family, but my son wasn't interested in playing that game with us. So I was like, well, do you want to do something else? And then she was like, I want to watch you play 13 Sentinels, which is a video game that she bought, I think a couple of months ago now. And I'm like, I asked her, like, why do you enjoy watching other people play video games that you have already played. Like, because that's the thing that she does. Like, she's wanted to get me into playing other video games that she's loved as well. And I'm like, these games are so time consuming. I don't have time for all of these things. And I'm not always as invested in the stories as she is. But for the answer that she gave me was she just enjoys seeing the reactions from people as they're coming to discover the story themselves. And I'm like, oh, that's how I feel about when I'm introducing movies to people, movies that I love to people that have never seen them. I love seeing their reactions as well. So it was cool to kind of see that there's some relation to that, just with a different media aspect.
I was going to say the same exact thing, and then you mentioned the whole movie aspect of it, and it's so true though, because I will watch a movie, 20 times by myself, but it's so much better when I watch it with someone who's never seen it before, because now I get to see their reaction. I get to watch it through their eyes. It's
Yeah.
so rewarding, and it's also a sharing thing too. This is something that I love that I hope you are going to love as much as I am. And usually that doesn't happen because we love things so intensely.
That's right.
But yeah.
But it's definitely, yeah. I was, yeah. So she was like, my daughter was like, is that why you've wanted to show me? And then she was trying to think of what it was. I'm like, Godzilla -1, because that was something that I told her that I wanted to watch with her earlier in the night. And she's like, no. The Barbie movie, no. And then she's like, eventually she's like, Attack on Titan. I'm like, oh yeah, but that's different because I just want you to watch it so we can discuss it, not watch it with you, because I don't have time to rewatch all
Yeah.
of it again. But we did that with Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. So my daughter and I watched that all the way through ourselves. My son wasn't interested in watching with us at the time, but for my daughter's birthday, after we'd watch it, I'd gotten her a plush toy of one of the characters from the film, and this giant flying bison. And my son thought, oh, this is like the cutest thing. So then after that, he was interested in watching it. So we rewatched everything with my son the second time through.
Nice.
So that we could see his reaction. And so it was such a fun bonding experience. And I'm talking to them about the lessons that you're supposed to learn through watching the story aspect as well.
This
So
is actually
such a fun
this is actually
experience.
really interesting point. Mom, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember you uh sharing experiences with Martin or myself when we were younger in that same regard. Are there any examples that you are thinking of that? Because I know when you were younger, you had a huge love for John Denver and Neil Diamond, and you would play the music, but I don't ever remember you saying, like, I need you to sit down and love this as much as I do.
And I will acknowledge that I did not do that with you and Martin. But what I have grown in my older age is with my grandchildren. They will often ask me to sit down and watch a particular segment of a movie or a cartoon or something that's important to them. And if my eyes aren't glued on the television, they're reminding me to put my eyes up there. Watch this, Grandma. And so I make an effort to do that with them because that gives us some time when we can share something that's important to them, even though they're only small children still. But they know that I would cared enough to watch something with them. I did something to the screen here.
Well, we can see it just fine.
Well, it's
I
okay.
think the thing is, to be aware of in those situations? Of wait,
I'm still here. I'm
Well,
still
Mike's
here.
turning his camera off to check on the camera, I suppose. They are in the same space.
Yeah,
What?
you're not there.
We'll be back. The thing to be aware of in the sharing aspect is, if the person you're sharing with, or the child that you're sharing it with, isn't actually interested in the subject matter, then don't force them to sit through it. There have definitely been times where I've wanted to or tried to introduce something to my kids, and they were just like, this isn't really my thing. I'm like, look, if it's not your thing, you can go off and do something else. I'm not going to force you to sit with us.
Sorry, I bumped my own iPad and I ended the stream for myself. So I
That's
had to
funny.
log back in. Sorry about that.
It's all good. So yeah, that's the other caveat to that, because I know, like, my ex-husband has definitely tried to force my kids to watch things that he has loved that my kids have not been into. Like, my son was bored out of his brain being forced to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy with his dad.
And how old was he at the time?
This must have been, I guess it was during the pandemic-ish in 2020, I think. So he would have been around 9 or 10.
Yeah, that might be a little young. Because I will say, in that regards, Lord of the Rings is such a sophisticated um series of films. Okay, it's fantasy and there's elves and witches and dwarves and dragons. I get it. But as a story, it is quite sophisticated. And the way that Peter Jackson brought that to life is a cinematic masterpiece that is incredibly artsy forward. Um,
I
so it may not exactly capture the imagination of a 10-year-old.
I think it's also more that my son is just not much of a movie person in general, unless it's like an
Yeah.
animated film. He's been more interested in like particular animated films, maybe not so much now. As we're streaming, he's currently watching, I assume he's still watching a Death Note movie that I put on for him just before we started, because we watched the Death Note anime, and then he was reading all the books, and
Yeah.
this is like an alternate ending movie that is there's a novelization version, and he read the novelization and he didn't really like it, and like, the movie version I actually enjoyed, so I'm like, why don't you try that? So that's what he's but he doesn't really watch that
Totally
much
fair.
live action stuff, and he's much more of a reader. Like, he reads
Mm,
incredibly fast,
mm.
so fast, and he does like fantasy stories. That's a lot of the stuff that he has traditionally read, and so I think maybe it's just the medium is not really his cup of tea.
If your ex-husband is dead set on him getting into Lord of the Rings, he has to start off with the 1977 animated film The Hobbit
There you go.
by Rankin Bass. It's so good.
All right, we actually have more comments in the chat that have come in, so I'm going to bring up our chat questions. So
Yes.
my dad did join us.
Hey, Frank.
So he says, I am listening, but out and about, so hard to input today. I'm glad to meet your mom, Mike. It's so challenging for me to say mom, because I grew up in Australia and I say mum, and so it's actually really hard to get my mouth around saying mom. It
Mom.
is. It's so
Yeah,
challenging for
that's
me.
fair.
But
I'm-
I'm accustomed to that to mom too. Also,
okay, that's good to know.
but from my working years, a lot of people.
Good to know. I can just say mum then.
Yes, just say mom.
um,
It's funny because mom used to say that to me a lot. as a child, but the definition was more of be quiet.
Ah,
Oh,
Mum's the
mom.
yeah,
word.
mum's the
Oh,
word.
clever.
Keeping mum. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's the term for it in the United States. Yeah, my dad also says, "You never feel adult. I don't feel adult at 75." That's I guess in response to me saying like when I had a child at 23, I'm like I'm not an adult.
Totally fair.
Daniel is also in the audience tonight. Thank you so much for coming
Daniel's
back,
here.
Daniel. So Daniel says Mike's mom is here, Dominica's dad's here. It's like a platonic hangout date with the parents in the back of the theater watching to make sure nothing happens. Don't make me separate you two. But as adults. All right. Oh, my dad laughed at that as a LOL.
As an aside, can I just say I love your comments, Daniel. Like they bring so much joy uh to this stream that we do every week. And it's just, I don't know. I just love I don't know. I love the energy.
I also love the energy when Daniel joins us. So he says, well, that makes my previous comment all the more ironic. And was that in response to something that we were talking about, or is that just because my dad was laughing?
I would guess the LOL. That would be my guess.
Okay. All right. And my dad says, I find having children a constant challenge to be real yet full of anxiety over ongoing negative self-talk. Perhaps keyword was awareness of responsibility.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. It's challenging being responsible for other people and making sure that they grow up to be responsible adults themselves. What does
Okay,
that
can I
mean
change my
also?
answer?
Like,
I'm gonna change my
so
answer
which one?
from the whole being scared thing.
Uh-huh.
I'm scared of the responsibility, the awareness of responsibility.
Very fair. Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility. I'm so glad that my kids grew up to be humans that I enjoy being around. And they enjoy being around me as well when we all have, family time together. But they're also feel safe to go and do their own things as well. I hope they're like grow up more of a secure attachment aspect of that because they do feel safe to go and make their own choices and do their own things and mistakes and things, and still they can always come back to me. All right. Daniel has another comment for us here. Mike breaks the fourth wall. Mike's mom, that wall's coming out of your allowance. There you go. And then my dad says, my strongest memory of my parents' togetherness was their love of dancing together. Dad, did you and mum ever do dancing together as well, or is that not really your guys' thing? Because I certainly don't remember anything like that at all. If you
It's funny
have,
because Kim and I dance together. We take tap dancing classes.
That's right. You've shared that with us. I love that.
Jerry did not dance.
My ex-husband and I did some ballroom dancing classes together just in the lead up to our wedding, and then in the hope of we'll use those skills that we learned for our wedding dance, and then we didn't, and then I decided to learn the rumba from a DVD, and I choreographed a rumba dance for us instead. So
I'd like to go back to Mom's comment for a moment, where my dad, Jerry, he didn't dance.
mhm.
That is I don't know if truer words have ever been spoken.
Well, he didn't grow up learning to dance, and it just wasn't part of him. He didn't do that. There was only twice when we went to a dance type of thing, and we didn't stay long either. So it
Well, I
wasn't
think
his
with
thing.
dad, it was yes, he didn't dance because he didn't it was just never a part of who he was or growing up or anything. But I think there was another aspect, which is um he didn't dad was not the kind of person that went outside of his comfort zone to try things he's never done before. So
Well,
he
that is only true partially because I remember a time when you came to Oil City and did an improv show, and he was very eager to get up and do that.
yes, but that was not dancing.
Hmm.
Well, no, but that was outside his comfort zone.
Was it though?
Well,
It wasn't a thing that he had done before, but it was something
exactly.
but it was something that he seemed interested in.
But we didn't know what he would do, how he
Yeah.
would react on stage.
Yeah.
And to that end, stands as one of my most treasured memories all these years that I've been doing improv is being able to get up on stage and improvise with my dad.
I'm not surprised that that would be one of your most treasured memories. One of my treasured memories was didn't really get formally into improv until much later on, but before my mum passed away when she was sick with cancer, um, I did like a weekend improv workshop that culminated in a performance at the end. And my mum was in a wheelchair at the time in order to get around. And she came to watch the show. And that was like one of the most heartwarming memories that I have of her from that time, because even despite everything that she was going through, she still wanted to come out and support me performing in that show. So
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
yeah. Um, and your comment about your husband not doing dancing, like not growing up learning how to dance, reminded me of my memory of actually I did have to learn how to do ballroom dancing and like group dancing in gym class in high school. Is that something
Yes, we did that too, but he didn't.
he did it? Mike, did you have to do dancing in gym class or anything?
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
No, I grew up in a school where teachers brought their guns to school.
So
So
if you danced, you got shot. Like
I
what?
guess, yeah. I grew up in Footloose, in the town of Footloose.
Right.
John Lithgow was our local pastor and outlawed dancing. So yeah, it was never an option for us.
Fair enough. That's fascinating. All right, my dad has a response to the question that I asked him about the dancing. He says, "Our first night together was dancing. Your mum didn't have a natural rhythm. I danced more with you kids than her." That's fair. Yeah,
Mhm.
we like mucking around dancing and stuff, not like formal ballroom dancing stuff. All right. Next question.
Next question. I want to hear mom say next question.
Next time. Next time. Um, what's one lesson you wish your parents had taught you?
Mom,
Oh, I'll let you go first. I have to think.
Dominica, you go first. I need to think.
Fair enough. Okay. Um, just one lesson I wish my parents had taught me. I don't know. I guess this is a tough question.
It is.
I think, I mean, in a way, I feel like I was taught to be myself, and it was okay to be myself. But I think the I don't think I was taught well enough how to recognize abusive or toxic relationship circumstances. And I think that's something that I wish I'd learned more about, what healthy relationship dynamics are like from my parents. There we go. That's my answer.
I think for me, I think mine would be, so I grew up in a very racist, homophobic, sexist, xenophobic community. And at the time, those weren't terms that anyone would have ever used towards that community, saying, "Hey, community, you are these things." It just was because it had always been that way. Um, and I had to learn on my own out in the world that not all people of color are criminals, that not all um, uh, uh, I mean, just like all the stereotypes. Like stereotypes aren't uh, always the case. In fact, they usually aren't always the case.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know. It. I was also raised in a time period that those discussions were just not ever being had. Um, but
At
I don't
least
know.
not if you were in a predominantly white community.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
In our community, I you could count the number of people of color on one hand in the entire county. And I don't really think that I'm being hyperbolic in that sense. Um, people who identified in all different aspects on that spectrum uh, were kind of outcasts. Um, I don't know. I think it would have been helpful for me if there was a sense,
You'd been taught to be more accepting of people
yeah,
from
of
different backgrounds.
acceptability. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How about you, Mom?
Well, when I grew up, it was taught to not just me, but everybody. You, if you had opinions about things, mostly you kept that information to yourself and you didn't discuss it. And so it became more difficult to have conversations, open discussions about things, because that was not something that was common. You didn't have open discussions about political matters, about definitely about religious matters. You just didn't. So it was more difficult for me to be able to um, be in environments where I would have to offer my opinion about things because I wasn't used to that.
Mhm.
Now, I will say to that. excuse- Sorry. Oh, I thought that I muted it. Sorry about that. Anyway, um, I told you I'm still trying to get over this cough. To that end, Mom, uh, you've never been one to push the boundaries, to test the waters, so to speak. But there is a particular story that you've told over and over again, um, about how feisty you were when calculating your college professor's BMI in front of the entire class.
Oh, yes. Well, this teacher that I had challenged. We each had to give a presentation during the course of the class. This is it when I was going to the university, and and he wanted. I think. Well, I just. It's been too long. I don't remember the parameters of what we were challenged to do. But what I decided to do was to calculate how much how much he needed to eat a day because he, and then I cooked it all in the form of wheat because he just told everybody wheat was the bottom line. It was the mother of all foods, and you needed to eat wheat. And so I did. I cooked wheat. I cooked it for 3 days until I had all these 5-gallon jars of wheat cooked, and I rolled it in, and I gave my presentation, and then I unveiled the wheat, and I told him this was his to take home and eat. Yeah, I was kind of smart alecky, but I did that.
Gee, I wonder where I get it from.
I love
However,
that.
that was in the course of an assignment.
You could have done something else.
I know, but I couldn't resist. Every class he had to tell us about the how wonderful wheat was and its qualities and all of its everything. And I thought I just can't pass this up. So I did.
Brava. Brava.
Oh
Okay.
yes, yes.
Next question.
No, wait, we have more comments in the chat.
Yes. I love comments from the chat.
I also love comments from the chat. All right, my dad continued on from his last comment. He said, we did try lessons together, but never the flow that my parents had for dancing.
Uh
Well, it happens. Not everyone has the dancing gene.
well, every couple
No.
finds their own thing.
Daniel says Mike starts dancing to Kenny Loggins. Principal comes out of the office like RoboCop, gun drawn, freeze.
Okay, so do you get that reference? Do you know what's going on?
I don't know who Kenny Loggins is.
Loggins.
Loggins?
Yes.
I don't know who that is, and I've also don't think I've ever seen RoboCop.
Okay, so this is a Footloose reference because
Okay.
gotta cut loose, foot loose, kick off your Sunday shoes. That's a Kenny Loggins song.
Okay.
And the principal coming out. Have you seen Footloose?
I have seen that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the whole idea of like, oh, you're dancing, freeze, stop what you're doing right now. And he's just combining like 80s IP, but yeah,
Fair enough. Yeah.
it's true.
Well, because of the whole guns thing, all the teachers have the guns. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Daniel did correct himself. I missed it.
yeah, Loggins.
And then he says, I didn't mean to say loggings, but it would have been funny if he was dressed as a lumberjack while making Kevin Bacon dance against religious and parental oppression.
It's true. That would
Would
change
be
the
a whole
context of the movie.
other look, right? Yeah.
Mom, have you seen the movie
Footloose.
Footloose?
I've seen Footloose, yes.
Oh, okay.
I've seen Dirty Dancing too.
Okay. This is a PG rated show, Mom.
Well, it's a G-rated movie. Go on.
Is it though? It's today.
It is today. You can take that filth.
It is today. At your request, I get it. Okay, my dad has another comment for us too. He says, I wished I'd been more open to arguing. They were both opinionated
Ooh.
and argued, not healthily, and brought out my fears. So that's my dad's parents. My dad's parents were both opinionated and argued, but not in a healthy way. And
Gotcha.
So that brought out his fears. So that brought out his fears. So he wished that he'd been more open to arguing. he didn't stand up for himself about his own wants and needs in the relationship. I think that's something that my dad has talked about on the stream in the chat before. And Daniel says, waits for Anne to say, nobody puts baby in a corner.
Thanks.
Nobody puts Anne in a corner.
That's right. All right, next question. Oh, wait, we were supposed to get Anne to say that next.
Yeah, Mom, it's your turn.
How do you balance who you are as a person with who you are as a parent or a child?
Well, that works too, but we actually want you to say the words. Next question.
Oh, not this one.
No.
No.
Say the words.
Just say words.
Just say next question.
Next question.
There you go.
There we go. All right. The next question is, Anne's already read it for us, but I will repeat it. How do you balance who you are as a person with who you are as a parent or child? This is a challenging one for me. I know, as much as motherhood has kind of defined my adulthood, I have actively tried to avoid being seen as solely a mother or solely a parent. Like, I have done everything I can to put that as this is a part of my identity, but it's not like my sole identity. And one of the things that I don't post about my kids on social media very much, to the extent that probably some people might not even be able to tell that I'm a parent sometimes because of that. But I think part of that was because that was the way that my ex-husband saw me, was like, I'm first and foremost a mother to the children and a wife to him, and that mattered more than all the other parts of my identity that I felt like I had to suppress around him. And so I've very much been more, I gotta stick in with my interests. I gotta these are all the other parts of myself, and display my interests around my room, as you can see behind me, my Lego sets and my figurine collection. Some of it, I have a lot more of that stuff all about my house. I was like, these are all the other parts of my identity. I do not like the idea of only being seen as a parent, but it's definitely part of my identity for sure. But yeah, I guess have I answered the question well?
Yeah. You're saying that
separation has been very important. Yeah.
How about you, Mom?
Well, I think it's really important to. I'm not sure if I could say you can really balance them, but you have to get things into their perspective, or how much you're going to give, and so for me, when I was at work, I tried to give my time while I was there, but when I left and came home, I tried a lot to leave that behind, so that I came home and I wasn't subject to having to keep run back to work or take phone calls or that kind of thing, because it really could interfere in your family life. So I think you have to decide how much you're going to let your job run you, and how much you're going to push it into its corner or its space.
What
Yeah.
about when you were the child?
Well, see, my mother was a stay-at-home mother. My dad was gone a good deal of the time because his job required travel, and so I really felt like my mother did most of the raising of myself and my sisters, because my dad wasn't there. He was gone. He traveled so much. And so when he was home, it was for brief times, and the time that we spent with him wasn't very much. So I don't know if that answers the question, but
Sure.
that's
For
what
m-
they did.
for me, maybe this is just me, but I see them as just being one and the same. I haven't been a parent, uh, except to, two well, really four incredible cats. Um, there have been a couple of lizards along the way, maybe a toad or two, but my my parental style is a little bit more laissez-faire in nature. Um, I don't know, like how the balance of who I am as a person with who I am
Well,
as a child.
I guess how I see this question framed in that context is, who were you different around your parents when when they were raising you, compared to how you were with your friends, maybe?
That reminds me, Mom, can I have $20? I think it all comes down to responsibility because in different situations, you have different responsibilities, right? So, like, if you're, no, I'm not a parent, but I've seen them on TV, so I have an idea as to what they do. If your child is in the room, your responsibility is to keep an eye on them. If your child is at daycare and you're at work, your responsibility is your work. Um, if you have the babysitter looking after your kid and you and your spouse are out on the town, in the moment, your responsibility is to your spouse. Um, but other responsibilities in terms of like paying the mortgage versus paying for your kids' braces. Like those are both responsibilities that one isn't necessarily contingent upon the other. Um, but they're both vital to sustaining human life. And not just sustaining human life, but they're vital to the role of the person responsible for those things. So, like, the parent is responsible for the braces, but it's also the person who's responsible for the rent or the mortgage, right? Um, but the conundrum is that that person is one and the same. So, what is your responsibility in the moment? Maybe this is just a BS answer that I'm making up on the spot that doesn't mean anything, but it sounds good because I'm using a lot of terminology. Uh,
I have one comment I'd like to make about that, and that is when you are a parent, you're never a person to that child. You're always a parent, and there has to be routines that children have to adhere to, and so that they get enough rest, so that they have their meals on time, and that is a parent's responsibility, and you don't get to abdicate that. And other than if you hire somebody to come in to do a certain thing for that child, like feed them for dinner, but you have to make sure that all those functions occur.
I will agree with that because I've never seen you as a person. I've only ever seen you as a parent.
Until you're 14, and then you know it.
when they're older, right, they
Yeah.
do start to see you differently. And when they're older, they can start taking on those responsibilities themselves. You don't expect to still be feeding your kids 3 meals
Yeah.
a day when they're an adult.
I don't know. You
Like,
ever
I
seen the
wish
movie?
that they would eat less.
You ever seen the movie Grandma's Boy?
nope.
No.
Oh, well, never mind.
I was going to actually comment on Mike's comment that when your child is in the room with you, then you have to make sure your eyes are on them at all times. Like, no, you don't. Make sure they're safe, sure, but you don't have to be like eyes watching. Like, you're not getting into trouble, are you?
That's what AI cameras are for.
That's how you're going to, if or when you have children, you're going to be using AI cameras to watch your kids. Maybe
Absolutely not.
that's that's probably what the future holds for some people. Though.
Yep. The moment that they're, we're probably going to get to the day where like camera technology is going to get to the point where um, they're going to be able to anticipate based on like human haptics of what kind of devious trouble they're about to get into.
Like the AI camera might be watching and like, oh, this child is about to fall off. Alert, alert. And then the
Yeah.
child like falls on the ground. Oh, get a better call 911 for you now.
Yeah,
Type all of
exactly,
that
right?
for you.
And then child services shows up and you had the camera to show you. You didn't do anything about it.
And now you have the video evidence about how you didn't look after your children properly.
Yeah, for 30 seconds.
But I kind of, so I'm just imagining this idea now, like it's kind of like, back with the Gen X years, and the kids who grew up in that generation, they're known as the latchkey children because they were
Hmm.
allowed to run wild and things. And then nowadays, like, we're expected to be like 100% responsible for our children all of the time, and they're not able to go run free and wild. And there's less community now in terms of, giving your kids to other people to watch with their friends and things like that. At least that's not been my case.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, serial killers, for screwing it up for all of us.
Cheers. So I kind of picture like having AI cameras as a way to go back to that kind of generation. Like, as long as you have your AI camera watching you at all times, you're allowed to be a latchkey child.
Well, that's what it was like in the late 90s, early 2000s when cell phones really became like a boom. All right, I can trust that you're going to be okay as long as you keep your phone on you.
Yeah, exactly.
Call me when you get there.
My son still does not have a phone, and he's 14, and I'm pretty sure like all of his friends have phones. But my kids they've been good about that. We're not into social media. Like, they watch YouTube and stuff, and they have Discord, but they're not into this like very addictive social media like Instagram and other things. So Facebook is not even in for this generation at all.
That's a weird thing.
Yes, it's still. I'm using Instagram more than I'm using Facebook nowadays. Interestingly enough,
I'm still a Facebook person.
I
Old
think-
habits die hard.
I think it's because for me, like, my Facebook just isn't getting as much of attention as what it used to, and I'm reading a lot of like things that piss me off on Facebook, which makes me less inclined to post as well.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
And I don't know, I've been diving into Instagram analytics, which I will probably talk about more next week because I have an idea for next week's episode. But let's move on to the next question.
Mom, do you want to say it?
Oh, next question.
There we go. And I think this is the last question that we have from ChatGPT.
Ooh,
So,
perfect timing because I think we're starting to wind down a little bit over
I
here.
know it's pretty late where you guys are.
little bit.
In what ways do you see generational patterns playing out or breaking in your family?
In what ways do you see generational patterns breaking or playing out or breaking in your family? Mom, any thoughts?
I'm not sure. I'm wondering if this question has to do with, I don't exactly know the right word, but I'll just use this as an example. I know that when I grew up, divorce was not a good thing, and it had really bad connotations. And I'm not sure if that's what that means, but I see now in the years since I was well, obviously it's many years since I was a small child, but um,
All same.
that isn't true anymore. People don't have those same attitudes. They don't have the same attitudes about mental health, about getting treatment and finding ways to deal with those kinds of problems. So I just think that in in those terms, I think things have improved a lot in families, so that families are not torn apart with some of the um, I guess generational habits,
Yeah.
generational patterns. That's
Yeah.
what I have to say.
I think it's something that still kind of depends on the family, though. I feel like, at least with my ex-husband, he was very against any kind of mental health treatment and stuff, especially for himself. He eventually would be fine with me going to seek mental health treatment for myself, but only because it would benefit him in some way, because he wanted me to be less nasty to him or whatever. And he thought seeing a therapist would make me be less nasty to him, without considering, the things that he could be doing to make me not want to be nasty to him. He definitely could have benefited from it if it was something that he saw value in, and if he was capable of recognizing that he had flaws himself that he could work on. But there was definitely the mindset of, like, there's nothing wrong with me, so there's no reason for me to go and seek help. And he was Gen X, so I think is probably still, for that generation, more challenging. I think millennials are more open to it, and then Gen Z even more so. So I think as the generations go on, it feels more acceptable to kind of discuss those things. But yeah, I think the generational patterns of, I've been trying to break patterns that I saw from my parents growing up, as I kind of discussed earlier, like no fast food and things like that, and making sure that my kids feel safe for them to come and talk to me about anything that comes up that I didn't feel safe to talk to my parents about. I don't know. I think my parents probably didn't feel safe talking to their parents about things. I don't know. Dad, I would be curious to see if you have any comments on that, of if you've noticed any generational things from your parents that you kind of adapted and came that you've seen in me, or that sort of thing. If we have time for that, but I don't know if he's still around because he's
It's
let's have
it's
your
hard for me
answer first, Mike.
to like point at generational patterns within the family, because I think of those things as more of like not a tick, but like a mannerism that kind of gets passed down. Uh, I never knew. Well, first of all, I never met either of my grandfathers. They died long before I was born. Um, Mom's mom, this lady's mother, um, lived in two different time zones away. So I never really got to know her that well. My dad's mom was Mom, what the- She's
Go
laughing.
ahead, Mike. Speak right up.
Well, I mean, I don't want to use the word kooky, but uh, let's just say that Mary
She just
Agnes,
had some habits.
yeah, she was uh, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of person. Um, but one of the generational habits, as opposed to patterns, that I have noticed, uh, Grandma Brown didn't like process information very quickly or maybe very effectively. And I would say there was like a jam of like when there was an information overload, she would get frustrated and kind of explode. And I noticed the same thing with my father, is that information overload, he would get frustrated and then explode. And I feel like I've seen my brother play into that a little bit, but I have also played into that. Improv 100,000% has helped me mitigate that and kind of realize it and give me some tools to circumvent it a little bit. But I also get overloaded with information and then I get frustrated and I explode. Those are, I don't know if that's specifically what the question is asking, but that's kind of what I'm picturing, is that there's like this habit that has kind of like been passed down.
Yeah, no, I can see that. That to me sounds like a very common experience for autistic people, with the information overload and then feeling very frustrated and exploding. I don't think it's an exclusively autistic thing, but I can definitely see that as something that's common amongst autistic people.
I mean, the idea that my grandmother, my father, and myself are all autistic is not outside the realm of impossibility.
I wasn't going to imply, because I've had people get pissed off at me for implying that they might be autistic before, but that's anyway. I think for me that I don't know. I see this as also kind of in the generational trauma aspect, and think habits, and as you said, I think the one thing that my parents broke out of that was probably a generational like thing that was passed down from parent to child, was the spanking, hitting your
Mm,
children to get them to behave. And my parents did that when I was a younger child, until they realized, oh, this is not a good thing, we should stop. And then they stopped. I don't remember how old I was when they realized that they shouldn't be doing that. But I do have distinct memories of that being a thing that they used to do, and then realized that they shouldn't. My mum had the whole wooden spoon thing. She said, threaten with the wooden spoon. I'm going to spank you with the wooden spoon.
My dad had a green wooden sword.
Wow.
Do you remember that?
No.
It was in the old house, not the one in Oil City, but in Franklin, and we used it in our bedroom, Martin and my's bedroom, to prop open the window.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that little green wooden sword
Hmm.
that I'm pretty sure the dad made?
Yeah.
He threatened to spank you with that? Is that what you were saying? Or he just had a wooden sword?
Well, no. Like that was the spanking device from time
Okay.
to time. But I was also really little, so like what I considered corporal punishment was probably more of like a kind of a thing.
I think in my dad's case, it was like being laid over his lap and spanking my butt. That's what I
Mm.
remember. And what's that? Anyway, my dad is watching right now. I know he has regrets over that. Like, I'm not saying like, like I said, my parents realized uh, through their parenting that that was something that they needed
Well,
to stop doing.
Australia is way more progressive than the United States. So, of course your parents would come to terms with that and have that realization.
Maybe, but they did grow up in the United States. So
I thought your mom was Australian though.
no, both of my parents were born in the United States.
Huh.
My dad moved out in the 70s to he had a job as a teacher, and then my mum flew out to join him. They met at university in
Interesting.
Wyoming. Mhm. All right. My dad has left us a few more comments, so let me bring them up. So he says he was in the shop getting meds. He missed a bit of the conversation. Seems about helicopter parenting versus growing up on the Wyoming plains. So that's where my dad grew up, was in Wyoming, in
Comes full circle.
Laramie. So I guess he had a bit more freedom. Although
I know Laramie.
the one story that I remember most that my dad tells about his childhood was how he was the one responsible for making sure that his brothers got to and from school safely. And then the one day that he did not do a good job with like making sure that his brother Clinton uh, was going home safely, he got hit by a car and died, or something like that. So anyway, I don't know where that was going with that.
That would be a hard one to forget.
Yeah, that's my dad has some trauma.
When you started down that road, I was thinking, oh, just like the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And then I was like, we'll see how the story ends to see if I'm gonna bring that up or not. And it took a very dark turn. So I decided I'm not going to mention It's a
Fair.
Wonderful Life in any capacity whatsoever.
Except now to say that you were going to, and then now you're not.
No, I didn't even do that. So
Okay.
I would never mention that movie ever in this
Mhm.
context because that's just in bad taste.
All right. Okay. Then my dad's next comment is new question answer, hoarding and effects of the Big Depression on parents and grandparents, keeping things as part of my identity. Okay. That is definitely something that we have not broken from generational habits for sure. So he's saying like his parents were big hoarders. He is also a big hoarder. And I am also, but I will say I'm a collector of things. And as you can see behind me, I'm not so bad that you can't walk anywhere and it's a maze to get through my house. But I definitely collect a lot of things for sure. And that is definitely a big part of my identity. So what was the question that was related to again? That was in what ways do you see generational patterns playing out or breaking in your family? So that's a one that played out. and continues to do so. My kids, less so. My daughter, definitely not. Hates owning anything, pretty much. She's like very minimalist. My son was a big collector of plush toys, but he's less so now. So I don't think that's something that they will be continuing as they get older. So my kids are breaking that pattern. There you go. All right. My dad's next comment is grandfathers didn't survive as easily. They usually went first. Death was more common in their generation because of wars,
Oh,
or
because
just in general.
I never met either of my grandfathers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So what, Mom, your dad died in 1969.
Yes.
My dad's father died in
1970,
was it 77?
77.
So on the screen, I'm looking over this way and I can see exactly what you're doing, but on screen it looked very strange. Mom was just plugging her iPad in.
I see. I didn't meet any of my grandfathers either. I met one of my mum's grandfathers. Yeah, one of my mum's grandfathers. So my great grandfather.
Wow. Okay.
But that's the only like patriarchal ancestor in the lineage that I was able to meet.
Now, Mom's mom, my grandmother, not through our lineage, but before she died, she became a great grandmother before she died. Am I incorrect in that, Mom?
Yes, she did.
Wow. That's amazing. Whew. Yeah, both of my mum's parents passed away when she was a teenager. So I obviously did not get to meet either of them. But that caused some
That you know of.
If they were spirits, maybe.
Just saying.
And my dad's dad died by unaliving himself. That's how we're supposed to phrase it on YouTube, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, because the algorithm.
So
yeah.
That's more trauma in my family history.
Trauma. We know nothing about trauma in our family.
All right. My dad says about the spanking. Spanking was early in the family school days when we stopped.
Nice.
So that was my primary school that I went to. And then my dad says, my dad scared me to death with his belt. He'd snap it loudly before spanking. Yeah, that used to be a more common threat back in that generation, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Oof. Yeah, I don't remember my dad using the belt as a threat. It was more just a hand and mum's wooden spoon. So, all right, that's all of our.
That's it.
That's all of our questions, all of our comments. Thank you so much for joining us, and it's been a pleasure to learn
Thank you.
Your generation's experiences as well. I feel like this is a great topic that you chose for this, Mike. I think we did well with this one.
Glad. Next week, Mom is going to be back on, and we're going to talk about past sexual history.
Oh my goodness. No. Actually, the topic that I'm planning on bringing, I hope you guys are going to be okay with this. I mean, and you don't have to join us for this, but Mike and hopefully Sharon will join us as well. The topic I'm planning on going with next week is surreptitious social media spying.
Ooh, good.
Gee, I wonder if this is related to any of your past discussions.
Semi-related, but it's also a topic that I've been thinking about of late. So I'm like, let's discuss it on the live stream since it's
Yeah.
eating at my brain.
Might as well.
Yeah, we've talked about it on a little bit in other topics that have come up, but for sure. All right, my dad has one more comment for us since we have not ended it. He said, Mom used Dad's role as Punisher to control us. She'd just threatened us by saying she'd tell on us to the dad. Later figured Dad didn't enjoy the role but accepted it.
I mean, that's a pretty good tactic.
Yeah, I think a lot of
wait till your father gets home.
Yeah, that's definitely been a common tactic for sure that you see play out in movies and things at least.
My wife, Kim and I do that all the time with our cats. So when the cats are misbehaving, Kim will go up and say, Athena, just wait until your father gets home.
My ex-husband would abdicate all responsibility for that sort of thing to me.
Fair.
All right, that's the end of our stream. And if you're watching us after the fact, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to drop us some comments or questions in the comment section below. We love to have a look at them.
Like ask how old she is.
I'm 81.
My dad is almost that age.
I'm proud to say it. I'm 81.
My dad was
Good.
born.
You earned it.
My dad was born in 49. How old does that make?
Well,
you know what year it was?
76.
There you go. There we go. And my mom was 55, so she was younger. All right. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe. And hit the notification bell so you can know when we're live. We do this live stream pretty much every week. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Thank you for inviting me.